Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome to the Teaching Kitchen at New York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital. My name is Emily, and our topic today is plant-based fall dishes. So many of you have joined me here before. I'm really glad that you keep coming back. It keeps me here. It keeps everything going. So thank you for your participation. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box and let us know if I've done something too quickly or you just have questions about alternatives and substitutes. Everything today can be dairy free, and let's see. Yeah, it's all plants, a lot of plants. So if you're gluten-free, dairy-free, this is a good class for you. And I'm going to I will also be talking about some substitutions as needed. So welcome everyone. So with that, we're going to jump right in. We're making 3 recipes. One is a creamy lentil soup. Lentils can taste a little dull sometimes. So I'm excited to share this recipe with you. It gives them lots of flavor, really yummy. And also a very simple one, not too many ingredients. And the other veggie dishes that we're making today are braised fall harvest roots. I think that's what I called it. Is that what I called it? Something like that. Yeah, braised fall harvest roots. It sounds so nice, right? So elegant. And we're going to be working with, let's see if anyone can guess. I started peeling it. Can anyone guess what this is? Maybe you cheated and looked at the packet, and that's fine too. Let's see. Oh, so you didn't get the packet. Okay, so if you didn't get the packet, I sent it out this morning before class, but I will send it again after class with the feedback survey. So don't worry, we'll make sure that you have it. And I just a note, sometimes if folks mistype their email in the Zoom registration, I send it to that email. So if it's mistyped, it bounces back and I don't have the correct email. So sometimes that happens too. So just pay attention when you type your emails in. So we're making those 2 recipes. And then the third is what I'm calling the hash brown comfort cake. It's just one of those like really fall wintry dishes. You can serve it with a couple poached eggs on top to make it sort of a more complete meal, but it's just really tasty and yummy. And it's kind of a funny dish. Like sometimes it comes out perfectly and I flip it out onto a big plate and it's like this beautiful crusted hash brown kind of cake looking thing. And other times it not as much. So we're going to workshop that today a little bit. And then that's it. That's going to be our menu. So let's jump right in with the lentils. If you can see here, I'm using French lentils today. These are them dried. And then I soaked them ahead of time so that they will cook a little bit faster. This is in your recipe as well. So soaking them does a few things. It makes them, first of all, it softens them a bit. So it makes them a little bit more permeable. So the liquid can penetrate more quickly, meaning basically they cook faster. They cook faster if they've been soaked because you're kind of getting the process started. So soaking your lentils does that. It also perhaps renders them a bit more digestible. So some people, I can't quite digest lentils. If you soak them, sometimes that helps. So it's something to think about. So our lentils are soaked. I diced up 2 onions here and I'm going to put them in the pan. And I did this ahead of time because we're going to get to dice another onion with another dish. So let's go ahead and get these going. A little saute, a little olive oil right into our saucepan. And any questions as I am going through here? I see a lot of activity on the chat box today.
Yeah, there was a few people who try to guess at what that root vegetable was.
Yeah, did anybody get it?
I did, but
well, that's cheating.
A root vegetable of some sort, something like a huge radish.
Okay.
Celeriac. Kind of never say that
word. Good guess. Celeriac. Good guess. Not
so
quite. Okay. So, Alita, you want to let us know what is it?
Rutabagas.
Yeah, rutabagas. So, if anyone's ever had rutabaga, it has this purplish skin. And this one you can see has a coating of wax on it. So we're going to peel this completely. Actually, I can do that now. Why not? And rutabagas they're really tasty. I feel like they're a very underappreciated root vegetable. People don't really know what to do with them. So yeah, today you're going to learn how to cook a rutabaga. as well as how to cook something else, which is, I know somebody already said what it is. This one, another gorgeous root vegetable. Most people just turn to the sweet potatoes and the carrots and the beets, and those are all great, but these are really fun too. So I'm excited to let you know a little bit more about them. Oops, I dropped a peel. Anybody have an idea what that other very special looking, someone said it before?
Well,
Yes, you got it.
somebody said it before, that one, but
Yes,
there's a question
Valeria.
about what does the rutabaga taste like? There's a
Awesome question. So rutabaga is a root vegetable. It looks a bit like a turnip. It's very low in calories, which is pretty cool. It's a great source of fiber, with 9 grams of fiber in one medium rutabaga. So this is a large one. So this probably has like 20 grams of fiber in it. You probably wouldn't eat the whole thing though. A lot of rutabaga, even for me. And then other things, it has 4 grams of protein in a medium-sized one, a little bit of potassium, calcium, and glucosinolates. Not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but compounds with wonderful antioxidant properties. So because it's a root vegetable, so if you smell it, it smells, I kind of think of it as like a cross between a turnip and a parsnip. It's like a little bit sweeter than a turnip, but not so sweet as a parsnip. Would you agree with that, Alita? And then if anybody in the chat wants to share your rutabaga experiences, if you've had any, and what you think the flavors are like, feel free to do so. It has, yeah, it's all kind of in that like parsnip, celery roots, turnipy flavor profiles. Yeah.
So there was a question or a comment from Carmelina. She wants to know, well, her comment is very important, the saturated fat, the difference between plant-based and meat. And she said plant-based is high in saturated fat.
Okay, that's a fantastic question. And let's address that. I just want to put the tomato paste in. And these are tomatoes from the garden. So I made tomato paste with them a little while back. I'm going to add that to the onions, which are now nice and soft. We're going to pop our beautiful soaked lentils in here. Okay, and then we're going to add a little bit of vegetable broth to this, about 3 cups. And we'll just let that cook all together. And notice that I haven't added any salt to this yet. I'm going to add the salt more towards the end. Okay, so let's cover that. I'll bring it to a boil, and then we'll turn it down and simmer it for about 15 minutes or so. And then it will be ready. It will be ready, we hope, in time. Okay, just thinking of the timing, and I want to address this important question. So, all right, well, first, what are plant-based meals? Plant-based eating and plant-based meals generally mean lower fat, higher fiber, and it's a diet that focuses on health and primarily consists of plants, but it may occasionally include some meat, a little seafood, eggs, dairy, and it's just sort of like, if this is your plate, it's kind of recalibrating it to include more plants and less of the other stuff. So that's kind of how I think about plant-based eating. It's a very flexible diet, which is why, or way of eating, because it still includes some of these food groups, but in smaller proportions. So I really like it because it's very accessible. It's something that, you know, a lot of people, they think, oh, I'm gonna, you know, completely eat vegan. That might be a big shift for you if you are a carnivore that's enjoying lots of meat and other things. So I like plant-based eating because it's like a little bit more gradual, a little more gentle, perhaps more sustainable for you if you're used to eating a certain way. So many of these eating patterns, you know, once you're in them though, and you kind of find your rhythm with them, it gets much easier, but plant-based eating is just easier to transition to. So that's kind of how I think about plant-based eating. It's different from a vegan diet, which excludes all animal products. And it's different from vegetarian as well. So, you know, on a vegetarian diet, you could eat, you know, French fries and ketchup and Oreos all day, and plant-based is more focused on the whole foods itself. And then you might also hear the term whole foods plant-based. That's kind of, you know, that's kind of what we're working with today. So it's not a diet that's particularly high in saturated fat, because it actually cuts out most of the animal sources of saturated fat. It's not, we're using a little butter today, a little bit of yogurt, or a little bit of half and half, or something like the small amounts, a sprinkle of cheese here and there. It's not the main focus. So the animal fats that we're not using a lot of, and then we're cutting out a lot of the saturated fats that are found in animals. So that's how it ends up being a little bit lower in saturated fats than other dietary styles, eating patterns. That makes sense to everybody? Maybe, sort of. Okay. All right. Well, if you have follow-up questions on that, please let me know. All right. It's an important question, and thank you, Alita, for sharing it. So our lentils are in. So let's go to our braised vegetables next. So I'm actually going to scoot this back here, bring this over here. It's like musical pans up here, right? Most people play musical chairs. Maybe I'll put this over here. I play musical pans. All right. And then for the braised veggies, I can turn on these ones. I always feel a little bit like I'm running a spaceship up here. There's so many different knobs. So let's get this pan warm and we'll chop up the rutabaga. So I peeled it. I'm going to trim off any parts that just look like they've seen, slightly better days. So we'll trim those, and you can put those in your compost or however you like to dispose of your. And I just want to show you, this is as hard as a squash. So I kind of wedge my knife in, and then I go to kind of let the knife do the work. So I'm not pushing through. I'm keeping my hand on top. Both hands are safe. It's one of those things that you think, oh my God, am I going to break something doing this? But you just have to be, with this technique, you have to be a little patient with it. And then, yeah, it's much easier. Now I have a flat surface. It's a lot safer for me to work on. I'm keeping both hands on top, so in case there's any slipping, my fingers are safe. And I'm just cutting these into about 1 inch, I guess these would be half circles-ish. All right. So has anybody eaten a rutabaga before? Anybody tried one before? And what was your experience? And what did you think? And tell us everything about it. While I chop this up. Any ideas? Anything? So you can see I'm just going through it one by one. Go ahead, Alina. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Not yet, but a lot of people got the celeriac response.
Yes,
correct. So there are quite a few people who did. Somebody referred to it as ugly, which it is.
Oh. Poor celery root, man.
I know.
It gets a bad reputation because it's just a little gnarly, it's like this gnarled up little root, and but it is such a wonderful flavor. And I like to use it in soups. I think it gives it a really good flavor in soups. I also really love it in like if you're doing mashed potatoes or something like that, like a mash, or with just potatoes. Lighten it up a little bit, use some of that celery root and chop it up nice and get that in with your potatoes. It'll kind of lower the carb count of your dish because it's lower in carbs. I also like to put parsnip in my mash. What else do I like to do with celery root? I've roasted it. That's delicious too. Done like celery root, kind of style fries. That's pretty yummy. I know a lot of people are into their air fryers. I've never air fried a celery root. I don't know. I haven't air fried much of anything, to be honest. My sister has one, so I've only used it a few times, but I'm very curious because I like crunchy, crispy things. So you see, I don't know if you can see, this one has like some creature burrowed down in here. So I'm going to compost that. Any other ideas for us?
So Beverly stated that mashed potatoes, mashed together, I guess she's talking about the celeriac, with mashed potatoes is called, I hope to pronounce this properly, rutmus in Sweden. Rutmus.
Ooh, cool. Yeah, that is such a cool name for a dish. And I feel like it's so appropriate for mashed potatoes. It's like rutmus, like, of course. That's like onomatopoeic almost. Thank you for sharing that. I love it.
So Phyllis stated that she bakes rutabaga slices with apples, apple cider, and cinnamon.
Oh, that sounds really good. That sounds almost like a dessert, Phyllis. Do you have that as a dessert, or is that like a yummy sweet side? That's really interesting. Thank you.
So I guess there was a question about, do you boil the potatoes with the root vegetables to make the mash? I guess they were asking.
Yeah, it's the same. You treat it all the same way. Yeah. Yep. So speaking of, let's get this started. A little oil, a little butter, and in it goes. I need my little scoop. Here it is. Oh, I'm so prepared today. I'm sure I'm going to say that, and then 2 seconds later, I'm going to be like, where's my this? Right? That's how it is. So funny. Whenever you're like, oh, yeah, I got this, that's when the universe is like, no, you don't. or whatever, you know, situation you're in. And you have to like, okay, I still have more to learn. All right. So rutabagas are in. Let's get a little more oil. I like the oil and butter mixed together because it's like you get, you know, the nice flavor of the butter without using too much of it. That's the idea. Let's add some carrot. I'm just going to chop the tips and the tails here. And then these can just get cut into 1-inch, you know, or so pieces. I like them like a little substantial. I don't like them super teeny skinny in this dish. I like them to be like nice big chunks. And then that's going to add a little sweetness. And then I've got an onion going in here. So let's take off the top. Let's take off the bottom, cut it right in half down the middle, and take off the skins. I think I saw something else come up on the chat there. Did I miss something, Alita?
So they, you know, our Papora said that she has a mini air fryer. Is just less time than the oven. Beverly says that the pronunciation is root, like R-O-O-T, moose. So I guess it's root. Moose.
Moose. Oh, I like it. I like it. Okay.
And then Carmelina had a question. How long does the root vegetable last if using half or less?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, because rutabagas can be enormous, as you just saw, and maybe you're not going to eat an entire rutabaga. So advantage of root vegetables is they do tend to last a long time, especially the rutabagas, because they're covered in wax. So what I would do is, if you're not planning to use it all, you know, maybe cut it in half and leave the peel on the other half that you're not using, and then store it, you know, in a way that seals off the exposed side. So maybe wrap a little tin foil around it so that it seals it off or something like that. And yeah, I think you could probably keep it, you know, once you've cut into it, probably can keep it, you know, about 7 to 10 days, I would say. Keep an eye on it. If it starts to get slimy or there's any kind of like unusual coloring or anything like that, you know, you wouldn't want to use it at that point. But if anyone else has contributions to that question, that's kind of how I roll with it. But everyone else might have good ideas too.
There was a question from Carmelina regarding the plant-based butter. Her question is, is it high in saturated fat?
So plant-based butters, I have not used many of them because I would rather use a small amount of the real stuff. But if you're going plant-based, just pay attention to the labels. If it says hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils, that's a sneaky term for trans fat. And those are the ones we want to eliminate the most. They're the most toxic to our bodies. So, you know, with the plant-based butters, it can be, some of them can be good. Some of them primarily use olive oil, which we know is a good heart healthy fat. But yeah, that's just what I would look out for on the label. Is does it say hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated? But I don't know the specific numbers because there's so many different ones out there. So yeah, but if anyone does, if anyone has a plant-based butter and they want to share some information about it, feel free. There might be some in our participant kitchen.
So there is already, somebody put an example that Country Crock with almond oil is a total of 11 grams of fat and 4 grams of saturated fat. Okay, so there you go. I guess that's the answer. All right, so we're gonna add in our potatoes.
You can peel the potatoes, or these are potatoes from our garden. So I'm going to leave the peel on because I know that these had really nice exposure to really tasty minerals, and I just gave them a very good wash. And that's what I'm going to do today. So the onion is in, the rutabaga is in, potatoes are going in next. Our lentils are boiling, so I'm going to drop that heat down so they can simmer. And then we're going to add some aromatics to this pan. It calls for, when I wrote this recipe, I guess I didn't have fresh thyme, but here I do have fresh thyme. So I'm just going to take the whole stem minus the blades of grass. And I like to just kind of, break it up a little bit, throw the whole thing in. And then same with the bay leaves. I usually just squeeze them just a bit to activate them. If these ones happen to be fresh. If you're working with the dried ones, if you squeeze them, they'll probably crumble. So I wouldn't do that if you're working with the dried ones, because they, you don't want to like be picking out shards of bay leaves. But if you're working with the fresh ones, just give them a little like energy, and their aromas will be more active. So potatoes are going in, and we're just gonna let this cook for about 5-10 minutes while things will start to soften up a bit. Any other questions?
Yes, there's a question from Laura. She wants to know for the lentil soup, can you substitute vegan cream or vegan yogurt for the Greek yogurt?
Absolutely. So yes, we're going to get to that. Yeah, absolutely, Laura. And thank you for being here. But thank you for your question. You can definitely play around with, I'm going to be using, I had a little organic half and half, so I thought maybe I would just use that today. But I think if you wanted to use a dairy-free milk, the thicker the better, and unsweetened, of course. So maybe like a cashew milk would be a really good choice. And then second choice might be oat milk. I find oat milk, even the plain ones, to be a bit sweet though. So yeah, I kind of have a little question mark about that. Or you could use, if you have a really yummy dairy-free yogurt that you love, that's plain. First of all, tell us what it is. And then second of all, feel free to use that.
And then Beverly mentioned that they boil rutabaga and potatoes separately for those who like to eat the flavors by themselves. And then the leftovers are mashed together.
Oh, that's a fun idea. I like that. All right.
And Laura wants to know, can you freeze any of the cooked dishes today that you're making today?
Okay, Laura, yes. Let me see. Which ones would freeze? Well, the hash is best when it's golden brown and all the rest. But the braised veggies, I think you could freeze the braised veggies. I think they might get a little waterlogged when you freeze them. So when you're defrosting them, maybe actually, what could be interesting is if you freeze them and then when you're ready to eat them, you defrost them, heat them up, and turn them into a mash. That could be really good. I think that would work pretty well. Yeah. I'm not too sure. I think maybe. And then lentils always, I think, freeze pretty well. Yeah, I think lentils freeze. I have no problem with lentils, especially because these are a little bit, watery, I guess, to begin with. Ooh, potato. Anything else before we jump to our hash?
Sure. Yeah. Beverly says that once her rutabaga was not used and it sprouted leaves like her beets are now doing, and it became a nice looking plant. So I guess that's
oh my gosh, that's so cool. I've never seen that before. Wow, very fun. All right, we're gonna get the hash going. So here's my Freezing Art blade with the little shredder part. Right, that'll be helpful. And then each piece I have to cut small enough to go through the chute. So that's the goal. So with the celery root, can you all see the board here? Let me scoot this cheese over. With the celery root, I usually just start by giving it a really good trim. So cutting off a lot of this kind of gnarled up portion. And you're gonna feel like, oh my gosh, I'm wasting so much of it. It's not, it's just hard to get the dirt out of those super small crevices. So you can see now I've taken off the bottom third or so, but there's not that much in there. It's mostly dirt. So that's my approach with rutabaga. It's a bit merciless, but that was kind of my approach after my first haircut after COVID. You know, it was just like, take it all off, right? So we've got this. Now we've got to peel it. So you want to use your peeler, and now it's easier. It's just like a potato, just kind of work your way around it. All right, before I finish that, let's get our broth in with our braised veggies. It's starting to take on a little bit of color, which is really nice. Just a little. You could add some salt if you want, and yes, you could add some salt if you want. That's the point. Salt. Here's the broth. We're gonna cover it now that it has a cup of broth in there. Cover it right away. So you pour and you cover so that it doesn't steam out. You need that liquid in there to braise. All right, let's get this celery root going. So we're just gonna start this. You can see I'm kind of using my peeler, and I use my thumb to push it along. I find this to be the most comfortable way to peel. So, you know, whatever is the quickest, most comfortable way for you, that's the way you should do it. I don't think we had very strict instructions on peeling in culinary school. All right, we've got this winnowed down. And now, see, it's like you all thought this was an ugly vegetable. Look at this. It's like the beautiful Snow White of look at that. I mean, that's just really pretty. See underneath the surface. We have to look a little deeper, everyone. So let's cut this up into food processor chute appropriate slices. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut each one. And you notice, like, when I'm feeling uncertain, or I just feel like, oh, I don't really have a good grip, I always have my hand on top. That way, if I slip, I'm in good shape. All right, so now each one is getting wedged, and we're ready to hopefully fit these through. I might have to make these a little more narrow. It's such a small chute. I think there's a way, I used to have a food processor where you could take the larger portion out, but this one doesn't do that. It stops the machine. Those are useful though. If you don't have a food processor and you have a lovely box grater, that will do too. It will take you longer, but it will work. Excuse me. All right. And then we're going to do the same thing with the potato. So you can see each one pouring in, kind of push it through. Sometimes it's a little locked. There we go. And then the potatoes, for this recipe, it's good to peel them, but again, I'm using these really nice fresh garden potatoes, so I'm not going to bother peeling them. I'm just going to, again, cut them into chute-sized wedges, and then they'll go in. All right, so we can start sauteing our shallot. Get that in the big cast iron skillet here. I like making this in a cast iron skillet. I mean, I like making a lot of things in a cast iron skillet, but I like this especially. I feel like it works well. It gets nice and crispy. So potatoes going in. And you want to do this, you know, relatively with some relative efficiency. So you don't want to have your shredded potatoes sitting out gathering oxidation, because they'll start to, the color will start to turn. So I'm going to leave all that there. Take this off so you guys can actually see the cutting board a little better. And then we're going to chop up, I have some shallot here. So let's get some, for this one, I'm not using butter. I think I'm just using oil, right? Right? Yes. Okay. I'm going to get my oil down, going to get my shallots in, and those will take about 5 minutes or so. For the shallots, this is what they look like. I usually kind of peel off any papery exterior, and then shallots are cute. They come with like a little buddy. So sorry guys, break it up, and then take off the tip, take off the end, and then same thing, I just cut it right in half to take off any extra paper skin. So shallots have a lovely, I think, more delicate flavor than onions. They're just slightly different, but of course, if an onion is all you had, it would definitely work. Alita, how is everyone doing? Is everyone cooking lunch with us today?
Yes, they're all cooking. So there is a question about, you mentioned the oxidation. How do you prevent that from happening with the celeriac?
Efficiency. Efficiency. So as you can see, I'm working quickly here. You could chop, you know what you could do is you could chop your shallots ahead of time and get those going. I just wanted to show you how to, how to do it. But if you're working with potatoes, you can, not for this recipe, but you can like cube them and pop them in some water, and they'll even be fine 24 hours if they're covered with water. But not for this recipe, because then you're going to get too much of a waterlogged kind of situation, and you need the hash actually to be a little bit dry. Yeah. All right. How's everyone doing? Good? Good. All right. So we're getting a little bit of softness on our shallot here. Let's check on our lentils. Oh, they look good. They're not quite done yet. Braised veggies are looking good. Don't peek at those braised veggies too much, because again, you don't want that steam coming out. And then I made an error on your packet. I did not put in when you're going to use the celery seed for the hash brown skillet cake. So you would add it in with, everything else, basically. It all goes in together except for the cheese. But yeah, the celery seed is optional. I really like it. I think it gives it a little extra flavor. And of course, it goes well with the celery root flavor. But I'll leave that up to you. Potatoes, so you can see they have not browned yet because we're working speedily. And celery root are all together. So I just like to kind of pile these into the pan, pat it down, and then we're gonna let this brown a bit, and then we'll move it. It'll brown a bit, and then we'll move it, right? That's the idea. All right, I'm gonna give this a rinse because we're gonna use it for our lentil topping. Any other questions?
So yeah, there's a question about using the acidulated water for celeriac. I know you said no water for this dish because it'll waterlog it, but I guess if you're making another dish.
Yeah, so if you're making another dish, like I used to work at a place where we had to dice up 1 billion potatoes, and then and then we would cook them the next morning. So we would just chop everything up, and then eventually the next day we would cook it. As long as we kept it underwater, it was fine. I'm having a piece of celery root that has made its way up into my food processor and it doesn't want to come out. So I guess we're gonna leave it there for a little while until we figure out how to get it out. But yeah, a little, the water doesn't have to be acidulated. I just use regular water to cover the potatoes. Alita, is that your experience too? Or do you think lemon water is a little bit better? I know for apples, I do the lemon water.
Yeah, I just use plain water for my
potatoes. For anything potato? Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, me too. So no need for lemon on that. All right, are we ready we're gonna jump to the sauce that we're making with the lentils while everything kind of gets some nice color. I have the hash on sort of a medium flame, and then once it starts to smell good, I kind of move it around. So if it's smelling good, like that's the browning smell, move it around a little bit. And then pat it down again. And that's it. You just kind of pat it, brown it, move it. Does anyone remember that game? Bop it, twist it, pull it. It was like a kid's game. That's what that just reminded me of. Pat it, brown it, move it. Okay. So jumping back to our lentils recipe for just a moment, I'm going to bring my little mise en place over here. This is nice. It's a sauce that just gives lentils tons of flavor. So that's always yummy, I think, when you're working with lentils. We've got some garlic. We're going to remove the skins, either using the side of your knife or using a hard, flat bottom of something vigorous and sturdy. And this all goes into the food processor, so it's nice and easy. But of course, you can do this by hand. I've also done it in, I have like a little NutriBullet at home. I've done it in the NutriBullet. That works very well. But if you wanted to do this by hand, you could just really chop the walnuts up and the garlic clove really, really finely, or even do it in a mortar and pestle and kind of grind it around. So I always trim my little garlic stemmy parts. You don't have to, but I do. And then garlic is going to go in. I have some toasted walnuts, and I dry toasted these on the pan. So I just heated up the pan, put the walnuts in, sort of a low medium heat, kind of the same temperature as this. And then eventually, you know, once in a while, I would kind of go over and move them around. Don't leave the kitchen when you're toasting any kind of nuts, though, because they will go from being, you know, completely raw to being completely charred. So keep your eye on them. I've got some fresh parsley here. As I mentioned, I'm going to use a little half and half. A touch of salt and pepper is going into this step too. And we're going to pulse this together. Okay. So it's going to kind of turn into almost like this breadcrumb mixture. At this point, if you wanted to fold it into yogurt, you could do that. Or you could, after adding the parsley, or you could do what I'm going to do today and make it like a little bit more of a sauce. So you've got options. All right, pulse this in here. So let's see. We've got everything in. I like the smooth sauce kind of vibe, but you can do things the way you want in your kitchen. It's useful to have one of these little spatulas to see. There's like all this walnut. I don't know if you can see that, but on my side, there's all this walnut stuff up on the side. So I like to just scoop around, make sure I got it all in. My food processor eats these spatulas for breakfast. They just always get little, you know, cuts on the blade, blade and stuff. You have to watch that. Okay, beautiful. So here's your super aromatic sauce. And you know what? I can even pour this right back into the cup that I had the cream in. So any questions about this sauce? I'm using parsley today. You could play around with some different herbs if you like. I think the parsley complements the flavors of the lentils really nicely, but that's my palate. So play around with what you like.
No questions thus far.
Okay, here's our sauce. All right, let's check on everybody over here. Lentils are simmering nicely. Braised vegetables are burning nicely. Burning nicely. They're softening up. They're just starting to stick a little bit because that pan, the heat of the, you know, all the broth got soaked up. But you can always add a little more broth, add a little more liquid, and keep it going. These are almost done though. They've softened quite a bit. So I'm going to go for another like cup or so of, you know, it's better for your vegetable stock, but I used up all of mine and the rest of mine's in the freezer. So a little more water, that'll do, and keep raising it. And then over here, let's move this around so we don't burn everything today, right? Get a little more color on this hash. So it'll kind of like adhere to the pan a bit, and that's good. You need that for the browning. You just keep kind of, what did I say before? Brown it, stir it, pat it. That's going to be your song for this one. Moving it around. It's starting to soften. They're like releasing some juices from the veggies as they're really softening now. At first they were like, whoa. Now they're starting to soften and chill out a bit more. Food has personalities. I think all food has a personality. Move it. You can add a little more oil if you want to the hash to make it super indulgent. All right, I think we're good with everything. We've got some chard we're going to add to the braised vegetables and some mustard. So let's go ahead and do that actually. Here's our 3 teaspoons of mustard. And the chard, I'm not going to use the stems, but you could, and if you wanted to, You could chop them up and braise them with everything else that's in there, you know, make some nice small pieces. They're really yummy. I actually really like to pickle charred stems. I think that's kind of a fun thing to do with them. So we're gonna chop this up and add it to our braised veggies. All right, how are we doing on time? We got 5 minutes to go. Making good progress with everything. And then all of these vegetable dishes can be served with a protein. So I made some protein recommendations for each one. The hash brown comfort cake is really tasty with an egg on top. So whether that's a poached egg or a soft boiled egg, I like my yolks runny. Not everybody does, but the runny yolk and the warmed, you know, browned potato and celery root is a really nice match. This is a real kind of fall winter dish, which I feel like today is spring. But that's all right. You know, we couldn't know that was going to be the case. All right, let's add our greens in to our braised vegetables or braising vegetables. Let them get a little bit of softness to them. Smells really good. Okay. And I think our lentils are done. So let's have a look. Pull this pot over. So you can see, at this point, you can add some salt to them if you want. I don't add salt in the early stages. I find that lentils get a bit tough when you salt them early on. Beans tend to get a little tough. So salt them in the final stages. Here they are. Beautiful, flavorful onion, tomato paste, simple things that give a lot of flavor. Let's grab a bowl here and I'll serve this up. So you can sort of see how I like to plate it. I grab some of the lentils, put them in a bowl, and then I serve it with this nice little walnut, garlic, parsley, creamy thing on top. And voila, delicious. A little fun take on lentils, right? I feel like lentils, we all kind of make the same way. So I like this, it's just a little different. All right, final questions and comments, everybody. We're almost done.
No questions at this point.
Okay, so I keep having to kind of scrape up the hash mix, and that's normal, right? So I'm using a wooden spoon to scrape up all these nice brown bits and kind of fold them into the whole mixture, right? And this is, you know, you can again serve this in like a more of a cake style, like take the whole pan to the table and have people scoop from it, or you can you know, just serve it like a nice little veggie hash, however you want to. The important thing is the flavors, which are fantastic. I think they're really yummy. All right, so I'm gonna bring this over so you can have a good look at it. I'm spreading it along the bottom now. This is, you know, we've moved it around maybe 2 or 3 times at this point. And I think this is the final stretch because everything's nice and soft. It smells really, really good. So we're ready to add that cheese to it. This is getting a bit of Gruyere cheese on top. Of course, if you do not want to add the Gruyere cheese, you don't have to. You can just serve it like this, or put your favorite plant-based cheese, stretchy cheese on top. Anything that's going to melt. The Gruyere, of course, is a really good choice with potato and celery root. But you don't have to. It's good on its own, just like this. And then if you're serving it with an egg on top, it's got that like runny, almost cheesy flavor. Nutritional yeast is a great option too if you want to add a little bit of vegan cheese flavor to it. So be creative. Use, you know, what you have in your house, and most importantly, what you love. I love Gruyere. All right, anything else, Alita? We're just about to wrap up here.
Yeah, I'm just looking because somebody said, Loretta said that the creamy soup has 2 amounts of lentils. Let me see here.
Oh, thank you, Loretta. It could be that I did a little
okay.
typo.
So you know what it is the 1 cup of lentils. I guess those are the dried, and then the 3 cups are the cooked.
That's it. You got it. So exactly. And I'm sorry that you're right, Loretta. That's not a very clear instruction. So the top portion of the recipe, and you'll see there's a space between salt and 3 cups cooked lentils. The top portion, 1 cup of dried lentils yields almost 2.5, 3 cups sometimes of cooked lentils. So that's, if you were using like canned cooked lentils, I guess that's why I put that there. But sometimes I'm like, why did I do that? But you don't have to. You can take out the 3 cups cooked lentils if that's confusing to you, and just go with the instructions, you know, that are listed here. Yeah, thank you, Loretta. Thank you, and good to see you.
And Teresa says, learned a lot of the names of the root vegetables. Great class.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Are you gonna make something with a rutabaga? What are you guys gonna make with a rutabaga? Quick, put it in the chat. Or celery root. Inspire us. All right. So this looks so good. It's really softened up nicely. All the vegetables are like this. They still have their shape, which is really nice. You know, they still have like a texture and a shape to them. So they're not like completely falling apart, but they're nice and soft, which is the beauty, I think, of braising veggies. And usually people think of braising meat, but the beauty of braising vegetables is you get that kind of toothsome quality without it being, you know, too tough. And then you also get this, root vegetables can be, you know, can kind of like be dry or dry out a bit. So I like this, this version because the root vegetables are not dried out. They're very, very moist, which is nice, I think, to get that with a root vegetable. You don't usually get that with a root veg. All right, so let me bring this over for you. And I had some plant-based suggestions to serve this one with. This would go really nicely with, if you've got any plant-based sausages, I think that would make this like a really good kind of complete meal. So you've got all these beautiful, flavorful, you know, very nice with the mustard in there too. A little different. And then this is our hash, which is pretty much done as well. So let's have a look at that. Bring this a little closer for you all. All right, there she is with cheese on top. So if you wanted to, you know, try to serve this, you know, you could get a spatula and kind of get under it to get sort of a, yeah, it is coming out actually. All right, and you would kind of scoop under it to get a slice of that. And the bottom is really nicely, beautifully brown. So that's the idea with this one. Nice with an egg on top as a side to, well, really any kind of protein that you like. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry for keeping you 2 minutes over. Really appreciate your wonderful participation and questions. And try the rutabaga, try celery root, experiment with something a little bit different. The beauty of all these different vegetables is that they have these slightly different nutrients and slightly different fibers, and all of these things help to support our system in ways that we're only beginning to understand. So get some variety, try something a little different. It's not all about just sweet potatoes, which I adore, and butternut squash, which I also love. It's fun to try something a little new. All right, anything else, Alita? Did I neglect anyone today?
No neglection. But, you know, okay. Just a comment that there's some really excellent plant-based cheeses, really excellent. And then the plant-based meats, you do have to watch because they do have, some of them have a lot of fat in them that, you know, for
sodium. More flavor. Oh my goodness.
Right. So like somebody mentioned
that everybody.
That you really need to look at the labels. So yep, look at those labels first.
Yeah, read the labels, so important. And any purchase you make, if it has a label on it, read it. That's your information. That's the only information we get. So we got to do something with that.
And that's it.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.